Do you girls need anything else before I leave here?
Grandpa, will you tell us a bedtime story?
All right, Lucinda. Back in the old days before there was Trump or the emails, in 1854, Stephen Douglas was dedicated to U.S. expansion. He was tasked with the Kansas and Nebraska territory. He had to decide whether those states would be slave or free. Thus, Douglas drew up the Kansas and Nebraska Act, which would allow popular sovereignty to decide if slavery would be allowed by the choice of the people. However, this went against the Missouri Compromise that stated slavery would not be allowed above the 3630 line. This caused an outrage in the people. The number of votes cast was way greater than the number of people there. Border ruffians began to pour into the territory to sway the vote. These led to the city of Lawrence, which was a free soil city, to be attacked by pro-slavery individuals and leaving dozens dead and buildings destroyed. These issues began to reach a national level when a senator and abolitionist named Charles Sumner gave a speech in 1856 called The Crime Against Kansas. He criticized Stephen Douglas for the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the very institution of slavery itself. He also criticized Andrew Butler, the senator of South Carolina.
Wow, sounds like things were getting really intense.
Oh, they were. After Charles Sumner gave his speech, Preston Brooks, the cousin of Andrew Butler, had to defend the honor of his cousin and the South. So he went up to Sumner, took his cane, and began beating him until the cane broke. Charles was left unconscious that day and almost died.
Oh, good gracious, it got so violent.
This was far from the end of the violence, you foolish girl. John Brown and his followers rounded up 5 pro-slavery individuals at Potawatomi and cut them to pieces with swords. Oh, you don't even want to imagine the amount of blood and the entrails there were. The killing started a guerrilla war in Kansas that took nearly 200 lives. The New York Tribune labeled the territory Bleeding Kansas after all these horrors took place.
But Grandpa, what were the long-term effects of this?
Well, Lucinda, these events led to the division of the Democratic Party, thus ensuring they would lose the next presidential election. This division is what allowed Abraham Lincoln to become the nation's first Republican president, thus causing the Civil War, the nation's bloodiest war in history.
Wow, this sounds like John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry. Just another example of violence over slavery predating the Civil War.
Well, Lucinda, that was a great connection to another historical event.
Thanks, Grandpa. But when did Kansas actually become a state?
Kansas was finally admitted as a state in 1861, as a free state, because all the other southern states had already seceded by that point. And that, my dear Lucinda, is what we call today Bleeding Kansas. Truly a remarkable tale. Now you and your sister sleep tight, you hear?
Good night, Grandpa.
Sweetie.
Good night, dear sister.